I had bought 40 acres, and the 40 acres had a nice water structure on it. My intent was really just to use it for fishing, and it had a little bit of income. The very first year that I owned it, I went hunting out there and saw some of the best wildlife I'd ever seen. And so I was on a mission at that point to acquire everything around that area, which was not an easy task because all of the land around that was not on the market. So essentially, what I did is I knew that I couldn't afford it to just write a check for it. So I really had to bring in some additional resources. It is highly critical to have your ducks in a row from a pre-approval perspective before you even consider offering on something. And the reason is because in most situations when something comes on the market or there's a discussion about them considering, you have to be willing and able to make the decision right then. So many times in looking at property, I found a property that I liked, or something came available and I didn't have my resources in line. So in this scenario, I think the day after I had spent a little bit of time on this 40 acres and knew that I wanted to go after this additional land, I immediately realized I've got to get my resources in line. I don't know that I had heard of FCS Financial, but again, a lot of the feelers that I had out there in the contacts are familiar with FCS Financial. My perception, wrong, right, or indifferent, was they deal specifically with individuals that are looking to buy property. I wanted to deal with a specialist that knew what my situation was. And my situation was, I'm in corporate America, I have a decent income, I'm looking to buy a farm. What type of solution can you bring to the table that's going to allow me to either put assets on the table or some percentage down? So FCS Financial brought to the table a package that made it easy for me. I've got a lot of stuff going on, so I don't really have time to just get caught up in the minutia. I really needed it to be easy. Essentially, having a conversation with Debbie, who worked with me, going through my current financial situation, some basic questions about what I do and my income and stuff like that. I think I may have filled out a form, but I think it was just a verbal conversation about here's what my job is, here's what I've been doing, here's what my income looks like. So obviously I'm pretty fortunate to have a stable position and an income to justify. The other thing I liked, though, was being able to arrange an annual payment. For me, knowing that all of my income from the property is annually, so essentially CRP is revenue that is paid in October, and then typically the crop is paid first quarter of the year. So what I've tried to do is align my expenses to mirror the income from a timeline perspective. So the great thing about the way FCS was able to set me up is I pay an annual payment, and that annual payment coincides pretty closely to when the revenue comes in. So that really made it easy. So essentially I'm owning ground, and yeah, I have a note on that ground, but the revenue from that property is covering a big portion, if not all, of that payment that's due. I remember basically giving her an indication of what I was looking to do as far as how much land I wanted to buy, and we talked through some scenarios of what that would look like. So I remember having a conversation with her saying, hey, there's a chunk of land that I'm going to go after. Here's what it is. Here's the number of acres. Here's what it's currently paying from an income perspective. Here's what I think it's worth. Here's what I think I can buy it for. What would you need from me to buy this property? Would I need to put money down, and how much? What would the interest rate be? And so before I really put the full court press on to get this property, I knew kind of what I was up against. So then it was the ball was in my court. Probably 90% of our interaction was by phone. Debbie was, I think, answered the phone every time I called, which is kind of rare in this day and age to, you'd think most people would answer their phone and call you back, but it's amazing the amount of time you spinning your wheels. And then a lot of times in a financial institution, the person you talk to today is gone tomorrow. And so knowing that, I was dealing with somebody that had been in that line of work for a while and that was reputable and that would call me back, I mean, obviously that's instant credibility with me. I put 20% down on the property, and I was fortunate to have the ability to do that. There were other options that Debbie and I were discussing where I wouldn't put 20% down, that I could have taken that route. I think the rate would have been a little bit higher, but not out of the question. I just made the decision that I wanted to, I wanted to keep my annual payment in a range that was mirroring my annual revenue. And so that's why I made the decision to put a little bit of money down. Purchased properties, I've built homes. I've been through a lot of set downs, signing papers and going through, financing, and it was the easiest I've ever seen take place. FCS was helpful because it was just easy. The problem with going through conventional methods, I guess, a financial institution is there's just a lot of requirements.